So let's finish the Indian of B'dikis It's more a little bit easier halachas, and I want to by end give just a little bit a history, or at least an Indian to explain why today a lot of people has the consumption. They used to eat everything. There wasn't a problem. Why something? Why today? So we get to that in the end. But just in few Nikidas before we come to that. The first thing is like this: a food which is made with machel which was made without bediking l'istlum. You made a vegetable, or you make a vegetable soup. You forgot to be boidik. What's the halacha? Or you made a pack of rice and you didn't check if it's okay. Steht in halacha that in such a case, whatever is left over which you didn't cook yet, that means if you cooked rice, for instance, then you have to the rest the package, the leftover package which is still in the package, you have to go through. If that is clean, and you track also the food which you made, if that was clean, because rice basically is a kapuna mita mosi, then it's not a problem, you could eat it. Because you could eat it, you could check it afterwards, after you cooked it also. But if it is a food which you cannot check afterwards, it became a mush, so you can't check it. Mamatis, you can't check it. Now, wenn sich schon, over here, it depends what kind of food it is. If it is a food which is a machel, which is meat hamotzi, it's not michzik b'taluam, has one din. If it's michzik b'taluam, has a different din. For instance, if it is michzik b'taluam, what does it mean michzik b'taluam? We are already tamid chum now, because last week we went through it in land. Michzik b'taluam means roiv is mesila. That means 50% is, usually 50% of this food is full of worms. In such a case, if you cannot check it afterwards, you have to take the whole pot of food and throw it away, because it's a michzik b'taluam, and you cannot check it. Therefore, it is, you have to throw it away. The only way how we could eat it is if you could put it into a sifter, and the liquid, what comes out, the soup, you could eat, because it goes through a sifter. But other than that, the meat, the actual food you cannot eat, because you cannot be checked. You cannot check it. It's michzik b'taluam. But if it's a food which is only meat hamotzi, and as we mentioned, what it means meat hamotzi, let's assume 10% to make it the derech klal, what we could rely on it, as we mentioned last week. Then you should try to check it, and especially if a part of it stayed over which you didn't cook, check that. But if in the end day you cannot check it, make manas essen. But the even you could eat it. Why? Because now we have a sveksvaike. We have a sufil b'chlal. Maybe there was no worms at all, because it's like a meat amotzi. But there's 90% that it's not wormy. So maybe there's no worm. If a imtim tzaloimer, there is a worm, they had a worm, maybe he got by food, by cooking, he got smashed up. He got this is one osberia. So now it's going to bottle, because there is always food, always more than shishim on the worms. So in such a case, with David, so again, if it's michzik b'taluam and you cannot check it anymore, you have to throw it in the garbage. In such a case, if you cannot check it, but the David, it will be mitter if you cannot check the food. Now you still should check the pack of rice or whatever is left over which you didn't cook. But if you have no option, then you should David but the David.
Once it's not a full bun, then it's butter, that's the fat.
If maybe got sliced in half. Once it's sliced, is a shonish kamberia. Once it's not a beria, automatically becomes bottle. Because the only problem of sharotzim over here by us in a food is when it's cooked, is maybe it still didn't got helped. It didn't got dismantled. Yeah, so in such a case, there's a in Swedish bottle, because very in the bottle. But if Chabach after a year, and Chabach maybe, a suffix maybe was never any worms, B'mayla fazar oifen, kann man sich verlassen in als Zwecke sind wir Michael sagen. No, was then, If in such a case you did try to check the pot, you tried to check, and you saw 3 bugs, if you found 3 bugs, then you have to go through the whole pot. And if you cannot go the rest of the pot, you cannot eat it. Even meat amotzi, not meat shayne motzi. Even meat amotzi. If you found already bugs, so hab ich schon asufig maybe it's in shukam bugs, weil ich sehe doch schon hab ich hasuk dass du bugs because I found 3. In such a case, I have nur ein sufig, and ein sufig is darf ich schon bodig sagen everything, and if I cannot bodig sagen, then it's used to eat it bechlal. What?
Last week you said that you can be mevatel isla chatchilos.
Yeah, but we talk about we cooked it.
The evidence is we also.
No, if kavanoschu, that's if you have a kavanah to be a mevatel. Or you took rice. A shetka wouldn't mevatel zan. You forgot to check it. Who is neman to be boidik taloon? Shtayt machaber legaba tfilas kailem. Every person, a man, a woman, which became bar mitzvah, gil bar or bas mitzvah, has an amanas to be boidik mitaluim. If they know how to check, if they know what kind of worm it is, and if they know where to look. Because if somebody does know it may be a bar mitzvah, it might be able to look. But if he doesn't know, d'kingsטאן is a thing which you got to know what to look, where to look. So therefore, it is a thing which, but if, for instance, a child, a girl knows what to look and where to look, once she gets 12 years old, or he gets 13 years old, then in a godel, then kennen ze boidik zamet lo. If, we'll get to, yeah. Now, Zoe. Now, that's only but a machel, a cotton, that's a godel. Fine. And they could even be boidig as was a mirse bitalom, because even by the rice, why not? They're a godel. A godel make boidig as what? He has to be good with the rice. Good with the rice, yeah. If a cotton, what is of a cotton? Could a girl, a boy, be boidik talum? If they know exactly what to do, is an alochidu alucha klal. It's very important also to know like about tfilas kailam. If it is a thing which is mechiv min atoira, then a cotton can sustain. That means a child cannot be toivel a pan which is metal, or any keilah which is metal, which is a chiv tefillah midaraisa, he cannot be toivel. Why? Because midaraisa he has no namonas. A cotton or a ktan has no namonas. So since tefillah's keilah metal is a daraisa, otanish can namonas. Keilah which is glass, or the keilah which you toivel and it's not a daraisa, glass is not a daraisa, it's only mechiv drabonan. A cotton or a ketana can be toivel the keilah. Could be toivel keilah. So if you want to send a child, you could send it. If it's glass, you cannot send it if it is a metal keilah. Comes now by worm, so it goes the same thing. Whatever is a deraisa, a cotton cannot do it, which is mixing with the law, it is a machiv deraisa, so therefore a cotton, a ketana cannot do it. If it is nish mixing with the law, it's not a mitamotzi, so in such a case, can as a boy digzan, because it's only a drabun. Steht aber in the posken, the beschleume mit andere posken zugen, that, and we see it also in the Mishtabrier and Legaben Chespeisach, as even though a cotton, by drabunan you rely, you shouldn't rely on them only for themselves. That means they have a kaili, and they want to toivel, they have a mug, they want to toivel it, you can rely. But a godel should not rely on a cotton, even by Badikes Chumetz, which is a drabunan, even by Tfilas Kailam. The Ketchila is kedai not to send a child for adults to kind of be boidik. Now, women could be boidik talum. Let me make it clear. Although the Yerushalmi writes in Pesachim, and with the famous toisvos which all the men like to go around with a big flag, that Aisha is not neman to be boidik chumetz because atzal nunias, they are lazy, and their boidik just as easy. Lamais, what? Nishtanui itim. Lamaise is zug the tas shoin. The Terezuv zug the shoin. The Terezuv zug shoin us. It's not like that. They're by the Manoich already. My Manoich is a Rishon. By the Manoich writes in the Rambam Afelches Elchum Tzematzah as Adraba. Noshem is a much better because they do it by Messinas. So he wants to learn a cute pshat. Atzalnuni means they do it by Atzlas. They do it thoroughly. Do it thoroughly. Also sagt er. Also schreibt auch der Pleisi. Let's delusion quote. Hachish mayet, the famous Pleisi, the poisik in Yeridaya, writes Hachish mayet, sheyesh lismach yoyser abadikis noshim, shema'ayonim harba yoyser manushim. They are looking much more thorough than the noshim is the husband that wants to go out already, he wants to go to work, and they're doing himself mamash thoroughly. And it says emas, and therefore even by Isa the Reise, we could rely on noshim that they should be boydik. Yeah. A goy is not neman of d'kingsטאן. A yid which is not a shomer Torah mitzvahs is not from, is not neman of d'kingsטאן. Klura remu. You see me kifites. And a from yid, which is a shomer Torah mitzvahs. Aber when it comes to Terum is mezalz be d'kingsטאן, kann man sich verlassen auf seine bedike. Because as mezalzel and dem chotchik is a from yid. Aber auf der Sache is a mezalzel, you cannot rely on d'kingsטאן. Zult mechaber vater, a person which has an amonas to be boigiteron, and after they were boidig and said it's clean, somebody went and looked it over and saw a worm or saw a fly, which is nere la'ayan miyad. That means right away you open, you can see over there that means she didn't do her job properly. A fly you can't kill on, yeah, but I mean the flies which are basically not flies, flying which is there, but they found afterwards a bug which is nere la'aynayim miyad. Zukt of day is the chroim of a ganze sufik could be as shachat the ganze sufik. Sie kann sein as mekan al haba kann sie schon kein nicht böse antlo, also wat. Because if she, also wie was schriete, a tabach, she used to drive mit men, sucht man am tun sich schlossen, the same thing is also, also wat. You see it never alive. If it's a tiny dot, constant such bemerkt. What? Yeah, everybody can chew. She is probably cannot, he or she can also be tshuva. But again, a kapunam, they push it. But that's only again has to be another nine. Because if it's a tiny piece, could be a you have to understand. You know how big? Just to go back to something. People say you see the worm. It's not on a knife, so they will not have to look. So I looked in the Moshe Bai's book. He writes that the smallest is about a millimeter. How big is a millimeter? A worm, as big as a letter on a dollar bill, and he puts the smallest worm on a dollar bill, and you see it's as big as you know. Serious. There's on the dollars. There's not serious. It says on it serious. No, the other side. It says serious 2017. Serious. See on the right side. Serious. It's a worm is as big as a serious. Might be thinner. Like it's, but as big is it. So it says, is it nether lime or not nether lime? It wants to just to show that it's only because it's on camouflage or because it's in kritzen. That's why you don't see it. But Beitzim is nether lime.
Somebody didn't notice a pin to a little tiny dot. You could say about them that they mean well, but they don't have the ability to see such a.
Oh, so du gib mir zu der nächste Sache. Next halacha. Steht in Chsam Sofer, Chivas Chsam Sofer, Racham Sim Kif Lamed Beis. A person which does not have a good eyesight is also, you cannot rely on him, on his biggest room. Now, if he has glasses, he can see 20/20, it's not a problem. It's a clue. Or if he has a loop. But a person which doesn't have a good sight, and he doesn't use glasses, he doesn't use anything to help him, because again, Neder Lanai means in a good eyesight. You have a shvacha eyesight, what?
You have to use special lights.
You don't have to use special lights, but it helps you to see it. It's much easier to see. If not, it's much harder to work. Light, and they used to look at the sun. That used to be at the sun. Although a pasken, the Chsam Sofer writes, if somebody doesn't have a good sight, you cannot rely on his b'dikis. But if you could use any method, and therefore that's why we use light, that's why we use some magnifying glass. We don't use magnifying glass in order to find the bug. It is only to help you beriyas anai. Sacher b'payres metalum. A person is not allowed to sell food which has worms, which you know it has worms, if you cannot clean it 100%. That means a person is not allowed to sell, I would say, broccoli, fresh broccoli, in a store. Also viel. Ich meine, fresh broccoli is almost impossible to be boiling. Also ich meine, es ist fresh ones. Also, there's another thing which is called Not cauliflower is also one of the things. There's another thing which one of the in the Kasser shopping they were asked if you could eat it. Artichokes. Artichokes is the schmecklich was about. I can put them not a person at home. Companies is a ganze problem. Not so. So anything. So again, a person should sell a food which is EF Shilo Nakoiso is mitzad alucha to nicht to sell it. The Moshe says again. I don't know if in America it's also like this. He says Kegon Goyava. He gives a moshel of Yava, and such a thing. He says, you know what Gyava is? Gyava. He said the Gyava fruit is. Dus weiß ich, the Gyava, even which has a hechsh, this Gyava, what is it called? Dry discs. I heard once from one of the big mashgichim in Kashrus. It says, although it has a hechsher, if you want to visit an elchi, try to avoid the Gyava, because Gyava is almost impossible that you should be able to with what?
Dry or fresh or both?
Even fresh is Zaire fest. Also ich schreibe But again, we have to understand those. Not everything which is in Etzisrol is over here also. We have these things we have to know. The other stuff in Etzisrol which is very infested, and over here Lav is infested, and the other stuff which over here in one state is one. So man darf wissen. Aber ich kenne nur a Muschel. What I feel as fresh cauliflower is broccoli. I don't think that it can be cleaned 100%. I don't think.
You can check it and blend it.
There's something else. Meine soll man es verkaufen. Yeah, okay. This is aber.
Who's blending broccoli for?
Yeah, no.
Somebody do. Who blends it? Okay. Noch a steht in Halacha that if you are not allowed to sell, it says, that if you have a yid which you know is not choishish b'dikas talum, you cannot sell him a thing which you need. It needs to be b'dika. If you have a machal, let's say a thing which you could be boidik, but it is michzik b'talum, you cannot sell it for a yid which is not a from yid which you know is gonna be boidik, because this is the mission. It's about the dreises. So even a second issue, so silent even what?
If you have a kosher store.
If you have a kosher store, you have to make sure. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So not about a twisted question.
What does Ramoshe why give a moshel? You cannot sell for a norm from Yid scallions, because scallions, as we mentioned last week, is a big problem. How to be boidig al kapunim in Etzisrol zicher, aber I feel do weiß ich auch, for years which I don't touch it because. There was they said that it's almost impossible. A kapur masakos mechanisch boidig sein. Ich bin nicht rein in the Shulam. Ich don't get Shulam. Just you should have the gedanken which she brings in a sefer. But again, everybody has to know things. Okay, wenn some kein Restaurant, some kein grocery. Aber sie gedacht zu wissen, also wie weit ist Chumma der Indien.
So in camp we go blueberry picking.
Oh, du hast aber gewollt suchen.
If I send home a message and saying this is how you're biting it. Is that good enough for
No, it's not good enough because Chayet's geleint, Trey habe ich geleint, that wild blueberries is 100% infested. 100%.
Inside the blueberry?
It has inside and has in the crown. Last week we mentioned about the crown. You remember? Let's see about in the crown. What?
And the scales also.
And the scales also. But I spoke this week with one of the mashgichim. It tells me that also in the flesh could be, but that's not that's worms could be.
Never
Okay.
Picking it
And
worms are falling out.
but picking it is 100% infested. 100% infested. Interesting. It's interesting.
The ones in the store?
Once the story is a person bought a fruit or vegetable which is impossible, by mistake, impossible to check, mitzat hilchis choshe mishpat, he has a right, if it's overly infested. If he comes and starts boiling down and sees it's overly infested, he has a right mitzat choshe mishpat to bring it back to the store. If it's a thing which is yediyas yatamita mutzi and you have to check it, so al das dem you bought it, you should check it. You bought rice and you didn't check it, that's everybody knows you have to check it. But if you bought a machal which is impossible to clean, in hilchas shechanurach, in hilchas chashmish shait, you can bring it back to the so the Bach brings it in Simon Pai Bais, Simon Pai Dalet, Aram, as mekenas. If it's if it's not a thing which you cannot clean, you could clean it, but it has a lot of worm, you don't want to clean it, then it has to be at night with the soiche that if it's infested, I want to bring it back. But don't can man nicht bezahlt, chosh mich zurückbringen. But it's very interesting. Steigt nicht nur, and sucht der Ravosner, as if you take back to the store an item, which basically it's infested, you could take back only when it's opened. If it's a bag of rice and you see that it's infested, you didn't open it, you cannot take it back because the storekeeper will sell it again. And that's why he wird es essen, and Machatai says he's going to check it. So this is an Indian, if it's open, you can't sell half a bag of rice. But if it is a thing which you could see, and sometimes you could see it, sometimes a person buys a bottle of spice, you see through, you see it has a web, it's not fresh. So if you give it back, he puts it on the store, the next guy, is a tzadalucha, is do a iseres to geben. Yeah, if it was opened, he can't sell it again, and that's not a problem. Another few smaller luchas, and now we're going to the nachan akida. Tola'im b'Shabbos. If a person wants to yontiv, it's the guy ochet pesach vanach. A person wants to check his lettuce. I mentioned wants to check lettuce in Shabbos. He wants to eat Shabbos in the morning lettuce. It's not a problem to check Shabbos lettuce or any food which has a worm. Novus then. You have to take out, if you find, let's say you have nuts, or you have anything which has tola'im, you have to take out the good one of the pasoilis, because you take the pasoilis, it's boiler. But if you take out the kusher, the oichel, it's not a problem. Now if you find it on the letters, so the post, you cannot take down the letter, the worm itself, but it's boiler. You take out a piece of the letter itself. So in such a case, it's not a problem. What? That's what?
If you're not using a strainer.
What do you mean if not? No, I'm just peel it off. You're looking, checking it. I'm checking. What?
You're allowed to wash the lettuce before you check it.
There's the next. This guy's on the next stack. I'm in it. Yeah. The same will be also fruits. There are a lot of fruits which we know, oranges, citrus fruits might have. They have on top, outside. It has kind of what is it called?
So they said last week,
Scale box. So, it's a problem to take it off on Shabbos again, because even if you take off over here, you take off already the psoilus. But it's also peeling up a fruit as oibs is miyad. All these things has to be miyad, by the way. If you want to take it off, it has to be miyad before the season. You cannot do it in the morning before you go to shul, because that's already of lachas man.
That's derech achila, that's why it's okay?
Because that's the way how to take it off. Yeah, that's the way how to get to that. Yeah. Now, you're not allowed to take, you have fruit, cherries, or whatever it is, and you want the box to clean it from a box, so you put it in a pail of water, in a bucket of water. So what happens? The water with the box go up and it stays clean. Das tun wir nicht in Shabbos, but das heißt Beurer. Das tun wir nicht in Shabbos. Das ist echt normal Isser Beurer. Das ist nicht genug, it's a machine. Das a klure mechaber. But what he asked, can you rinse it when you have it in the hand? Yes, you could rinse it when it's in the hand. Weil damals haltst du in der Machel, in the psoilus fällt darup, das heißt Beurer euch mit der psoilus, and that's not a problem.
But even if you know the bug is there.
Even if you know the bug is there. Du hast schon eine zweite Schale wegen killing the bug. Okay, das ist eine extra Schale. If you die Schale sag mal, das ist lebendig. So, guys, das schon inside the Schale, als wenn der Schwinz ist, goes into the lava because he started. So, now you find in your soup, you find in a glass of wine, a fly fell in. What do? Yeah, Kemiven, taking it out with a spoon, is a reise. Shabbos, is a reise. Boirer, euch, psoilus mit der Heuchel, is a reise. So the Mishnah Berurah writes, you saw in the soup, you chicken soup, you see a fly. Now, if you throw it away, that's something else, but not necessarily people will throw it away. Take out the fly and mask this. So, yeah. A lot of people do that. What? You give it for a kid. Okay. So, Zuk the Mishnah Berurah, you take out the bog together with a little bit of soup, and it's fine. So, she's geboren over the Psoich, but see, es ist euch zusammen mit Psoiles. The Alter Rebbe halt man tu this stehen, weil das heißt auch Psoiles mit Teuchern, and a very rational thing. Because all this soup which is together with the fly is Psoiles. Nobody's going to eat it. Even if a person is going to take out the fly and eat the rest of the soup, whatever is mamash touching automatically, so the Alter Rebbe mekanis stehen. So there are some people, see the Imre Emes said, what you should do, put it on the spoon, yeah, and you put it on the spoon, and then you schlep away the mach. So what is that? That's boirer oichem matach psoil. No, once you have it, you can throw it away, but you don't take it out. You schlep it away. The Alter Rebbe comes very easiest thing. The Alter Rebbe says it fell into your cup. You just put it like this. The Alter Rebbe has very other blusen, other azoyru kemen as azoyru warfen. Favus, because the Alter Rebbe holds that whatever stays in your hand, that is what you take. So if you throw it out the book like that, what stays in your hand, that's oichel. So that means oichel mitach psoilis. So that's why, if it happens, this is how you do it. Coming back to his shaila, can you rinse fruits and vegetables in the water? Same thing. What are you holding in your hand? The machel. So therefore, has a problem in Shabbos, and it's not a problem. This is how we can do it.
So soaking my lettuce is also viral?
Taking your lettuce and putting it into the water, and the water will take the worm, is usad a machaber. The machaber rice over there, a person has beans with the schmitz inside, or wheat which he didn't clean out all those. He puts it into the water. Since the beans are more heavier, it will go down, and the water will keep the float. And see she tegen Shabbos, as it used boire dum, breire gemira. Okay, this is more or less the halachas of the Indian of worm. Kemiven, es ist gedei zu wissen, mit aufs Chazam, so Sachen, was ist eine Gaya, again, because you're talking about Isira der Reise, was wird nicht Butel, you're talking about 6 Isiram, and it's more important than a lot of ingredients, which I said, which ingredients wird Butel, mit allem in der Sache. Is also wie Schchiete. Also wie Schchiete, aber so machen wir mit Schchiete, wird auf einmal Minute das Kusher, in ein tiny drop, ein Schier, ein Druse, is es Treife, the same as over here. That's why it's so important. Talum is mamash so wie Schchiete, as darf sein in der erste Sache. Now the question begs, why is it that today's day, so many foods and vegetables you cannot eat? And once upon a time, they used to eat everything. So that's the question. That's the assumption. The assumption is that they used to eat everything once upon a time, and only today's day, they only want to frame in all these Sachen. So, first of all, it's not true. The ganze Sache is nicht emes. We see in Parshas Bereishis, with the klula, was the Rebbeinu Shalom gave for the Marishan, Arura, Ho'adoma, Bavarechu, sucht auf dem Rasche, bringt der Medrsh, als wird raufkommen, Zvivim, Paroishim, Venemulim. Das ist ein Heilig von der Klule von Udem Arischen. It's going to be wormy, it's going to be flies, it's going to be all these things. So sagt man schon in Teure, also I bin das Abisach. But notice if you kick in the Gemara, gestern in the Gemara, you will see that the Gemara has constantly Tlum B'mayim, Tlum B'adashem, all haluchas Tlum even in wine. In the grapes, in grapes, in raisins, all these things is really in the past. So my mind is it's not a new thing which people have the assumption that basically something is the frimme Welt of this letztes aufgemacht. In the Rishonim, what?
Today it would be less than it used to be because of the pesticides.
Oh, but it's not true. We'll get in a minute why not. It's not true. It's not true. I'll tell you why. We gaan gestern in the Rishonim, they constantly talk, the Rashba, the Ran, the Rosh, all of them speak, as you do kidneys, you do Poilen is some kind of kidneys, Chumas, steht there, as is wormy, Kruv, steht in Chazal schon, as is wormy. A lot of things which steht in Chazal schon, basically, as a hot vera. So it's not a new invention. Not a new invention. You go in the lower Achronim, but I'm talking about 300-400 years ago, the Prichudash, he talks already about silke. Yeah? Silke, he talks about horseradish. Today's day, we don't find horseradish. Horseradish is the Reuter? Radish. Today's day, Baruch Hashem, is nicht mehr so bitanuam. But then, yes, it was what? What do you say? Silke is some kind of bean also. It's a bean.
Silke is not leek.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah. Chasa, cherries in Knesset Gdoli. You know what Knesset Gdoli is? 350 years ago. Alter Rebbe bringt him schon herum. He talks about God Geduvn as cherries is mixing betaluam.
Is it still?
Cherries trezi avada. I mentioned it more than once. My father used to tell me that this ook aan de kids vandaag wissen. People knew the seasons. People were more into agriculture. In Europe, so people know that this you cannot eat. That's why I always say, when I was a child, there was no such thing as cauliflower and broccoli. No such thing as cauliflower. The man who gets cauliflower and broccoli when he's a kind. When he's a kind, he gets cauliflower and broccoli?
Yes.
In Etzisruel?
Yeah.
Okay. When I was a child, there was no such a thing. No such a thing. And when I lived in Etzisruel 4 years, there's no such a thing. No such a thing as a... Kick those as I'm telling you, Matthias. By means what get some cherries, what get some blueberries, what get some strawberries, these are all the things here. But my father told me that they knew that Parshas Koirach, you gotta stop eating cherries. Parshas Dus, you know that one has to stop. So they knew exactly when it's infested, when it's not at the times. Because again, not everything is always infested. Today is a little bit different, those we're going to see why. But there, they knew, they planted it, they knew exactly till when. So therefore, hat man amul gegessen, hat man auch gewiss wenn. So it was always in front of our eyes, the Indian of infestation. So the ganze Sache is nicht gut. Nur was then? The Mali gewesen, as after World War II, in the 50s, they started using pasteurization, very strong pasteurization. So there was about 30 years which commandos sich getroffen kann werden. Sehr weinig. Gewisse Sachen haben einige getroffen, because the pasteurization also do not pesticides. Pesticides do not, yeah, that's the right word. Pesticides does not necessarily take off everything, but they used to have very heavy chemicals. It was much less bugs in foods. That's why ta'aynim, Remoinim, I don't think is infested, but ta'aynim in what? Tmorim, all these things was not infested. And again, when I was a child, hat man es gegessen much easier. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but that they didn't have pesticides. Now they had pesticides, and that was a big brocha for the bugs. But so the government had to cut down because health-wise, people I militant länger. I don't know. Okay, this is what gleibt mir länger wie fahren Krieg, but okay. The Matthias is they cut down a lot. So a lot of pesticides got outlawed. But Noisov, so they got new pesticides. What happened afterwards? They had new pesticides which killed some kind of bugs. Now, you have to understand, that there's all kind of bugs, and then there's predators on that bugs. That means there are special flies or special bugs which eat the other bugs. So they had pesticides which kill a specific bug. Yeah, so you don't have that bug. Since you don't have that bug, automatically the other bugs started coming in. So it helped for one, it didn't help for the other one. One ate the other one. So therefore, it became back a lot of worm. Yes, the government got a limit. How much is quality of life? You cannot get bugs. They have no issue with eat bugs. It's a good protein. But they have consumers, the companies have a problem because people will not. So what happened? the government had a limit how much you could have. But the Masse, less pesticides, so the government overgoing, we can have a bisschen mehr rum. That means, we can have a bisschen mehr rum.
Of the pesticide.
No, a bisschen mehr box. The companies, if you didn't have the right pesticides, they have a new method. They have big machines, vacuum clean machines. Vacuum machines you go through on the Yerukas and schleps out all the worm which is on the surface, but it's not on the surface. Whatever is inside stays inside. And sometimes when the machines in the noise, the worm again, this is also Ramoshwai explains what happened. So therefore, first of all, so the Nikid Siddhurim is first of all, it used to be always a problem. It became in a few years became better because the pesticides. Then the government clamped down on this problem because it's dangerous. Now there's another problem, a very big problem. And that's a very interesting point that you bring it. He says like this: every country has its own worm, his own flies on the climate, every country has its own. Once upon a time, it wasn't a global economy. It wasn't a global economy. So what was it? A person had a field, he cut his crops, he sold it, like you see in the summer, people in Amish, in front they have a table, they sell it. Or they gave it for a grocery in their town. So it was homegrown, local grown. So the worm was also local grown. Eigene Wärme. For their plots. Jener got they got them. Now when there's a global economy, what happens? You start shipping all over fruits and vegetables. Now one of the reasons why you go in the airport and you have the dog going around, there are dogs which are looking for marijuana, but mainly they are looking for fruit and vegetables. What's the big deal? Bring on rule. What's the big deal? Pirates rule. They have one reason, which doesn't help because we see with the bepoil. But what they are afraid, new worm and new flies come into this country. So the fruit, vegetables comes faster. So the Moshe Raya writes in his book that which the year which he published it, this year we have 100 new minimum of worm came into Israel. 100. So what's it geschehen? Amul got a specific amount of how much, and you had the pesticide for this. Now comes in all kind of new worms, which not necessarily the pesticides work for this worm. And even it will, once you get it developed, you have the pesticides for that, a lot of worm develop resistance to the pesticides. So I get to push, it brings on studies from agriculture people. It's very, very interesting. It's Gdali if you have the biggest kalucha to read the Hakduma. Very, very interesting to understand the way how these things works. And why today's day it's such a big problem. Because why? So the Mendel says, and I remember the you could see in the video that the Rebbe took a ta'ina, which that was in Lamat. It's about way more my time. But there's a video which everybody could see. The Rebbe takes a ta'ina. Is keine Strahlen jetzt, was Toys versucht, als der eine Kushbuch mei mit Kula Tzadikim, mit Reibisch der watches Tzadikim, what they eat. Aber praktisch, aber dem Zuge der praktisch that time, not necessarily amad gedacht, wollte ich sagen, alle die Sachen. Doch, wo ist der Terz? What's the Terz? You give me your explanation then. What is the other explanation? What does it mean for Mach? And? Oh, okay. Fine, gerecht ook de worm is beschaffen geworden in der Wending, ganz am gelernt, vorige Woche in der Shiur. If it was born inside and it never went out, is this takenish usa. Could be that's explanation.